And of course, being a lawyer, I thought I would develop a training program for her, a little bit like a Black Widows program, if anybody's into Marvels. But rather than in the art of fighting, I thought the art of advocacy would be an even more powerful tool and skill set to have. And so that began the process. We then thought, well, why not roll it out for everybody? We want as many girls around the world to acquire these skills and to fight for their own rights as well as others. We have three core things that we focus on. The first one is advocacy or activism. The second one is leadership skills. And the third one, and the one closest to my heart, is litigation. And so those are the three things that we want to impart young people with. And so today, as part of the festival, we are focusing on all things law-related, litigation, pursuing a career in the human rights field, and how you can advance human rights by being involved in this arena. And we are incredibly grateful to Fieldfisher for hosting us and for all the support they've given us. They have, from the outset, been incredible. We've had, and I will introduce you to our panelists here, but at the back there is Nick Thorpe, who is very modest and will probably hide behind the banner now that I've pointed him out. But Nick's a partner here, and he championed this from the outset and really made it happen. But again, you have three more panelists here who have been instrumental in bringing this to life, and we are incredibly grateful. Now, just a little bit about back to Girls Human Rights Hub. We launched last year with a campaign called 1 in a Million, and you might see some of our banners with that slogan on it, 1 in a Million. Our goal is to train 1 million girls worldwide in those three areas of advocacy, leadership, and litigation. And so what we say to you and others, that join us on this journey, and we want you to be part of that 1 in a million. We want you to be that 1 in a million. Why did we set up the hub, and what's the need to teach these skills to girls and young women? Well, if we look at some of the statistics around the world, we get a good idea about how girls are affected, how girls' human rights are affected. We have 129 million girls, 129 million girls who are out of school around the world. 736 million have been subjected to sexual or physical or domestic violence. So that's 1 in 3 girls or young women have experienced some sort of violence in their lives. We have 650 million women alive today who are married before the age of 18. And we have over 200 million girls and women in 30 countries who have undergone female genital mutilation. We have over 500 million women and girls who don't have access to sanitary products or even basic hygiene facilities such as bathrooms and toilets. And 71% of all human trafficking involves women and girls, mainly girls, who are trafficked for purposes of sexual exploitation. And so the situation isn't great. And the reason girls are impacted more is because they have the additional vulnerability of age. And so often we have girls in communities around the world who lack agency, who aren't in decision-making positions. They don't have the ability to influence decisions that affect and govern their own lives. And so that is why we created the hub, because the hub is all about giving people those skills, the confidence and the tools to be able to affect change within their own lives and in the lives of others. And so we want girls to be the architects of their own futures and also to speak up for those that can't speak for themselves. Now, why have we called this a festival, given the situation is so bad? So we're calling this a festival because it's a celebration of you as young women, young girls, and we celebrate you because we see you as individuals. We see the enormous potential and power that you have within you. And we want to harness that and capture that and celebrate that. And together we want to try and make sure that we create a better world, not for ourselves, for other young girls, whether it's here in this country or other countries. And so that's why we want to see this as a celebration of the things we are capable of and the things that are about to come. So that's enough about the Girls' Human Rights Hub. And that's why we have the Young Lawyer Symposium. Today, we hope you'll get an incredible insight into what you can do in the field of law and how you can pursue a career in human rights. And we have a number of plenary sessions with incredible speakers and fireside chats, but more of that later. I'm going to introduce you now to the incredible panel that we have here. Now, first of all, we have Robert Shooter, who's the managing partner of Fieldfisher, otherwise known as the boss. And I think the boss really needs no introduction other than for me to say that we are incredibly grateful that Fieldfisher has supported us in this endeavor. And without your support, this just would not have happened. So thank you. If I can welcome you to the stage to say a few words for us, please.
Thank you, Sultana. What you and your daughter have set up is truly inspiring. We don't normally sponsor events. It's just not something that Fieldfisher does, but this one came along. It's so important to us. It's such a good forum and such a good series of sessions. How could we say no? So as you've heard, I'm the managing partner. My name is Robert Shooter. Welcome to Fieldfisher. We're a leading European law firm. It's with so much pleasure and pride that Fieldfisher are able to sponsor the inaugural Young Lawyers Symposium and support the invaluable work that the Girls' Human Rights Hub do in advocating for the rights of girls and women worldwide. At Fieldfisher, we strive to make a positive impact through our legal expertise, community outreach, and partnerships with organisations like the Girls' Human Rights Hub. Through our collaborative efforts, we aim to create a more just and equitable society for all. For example, last year, with enormous input from Millie, we ran One Firm Action, which was all about us supporting and raising money for our communities across the Fieldfisher network. We proudly raised over £500,000 for good causes, many of which were focused on helping young people tackling inequalities. Some of the charities, just to give you a flavour, include the Manchester Youth Zone, which focuses on removing the inequality faced by young people in Manchester, and Chancenwerk in Germany, which runs a learning programme to develop employability and life skills for young people. Our people are genuinely passionate about this. And I'm particularly excited to mention one of our standout lawyers, Jill Greenfield, who embodies our commitment to human rights. Jill's dedication to seeking justice for survivors of abuse and her relentless advocacy for gender equality is truly inspiring. You'll hear from Jill later today. We're going to connect her up by Zoom, where she'll share her insights and experiences in fighting for human rights and gender equality. And Jill is one of many lawyers in this firm and elsewhere who show that they really can make a difference. Gender balance is something important to me personally as well. I mean, my wife, she experienced gender discrimination firsthand when she worked at head office at a leading supermarket chain. And I'm hugely conscious of the challenges my 19-year-old daughter faces as she embarks on her career. As a firm, we're committed to ensuring we widen access into the profession. And we're proud of the progress we've made over the years, particularly regarding gender balance. Here are some stats for you. 79% of the current apprentice cohort are female. 65% of the current trainee intake are female. That's 28 of 43. So perhaps you're thinking about a career in law. Well, there's a route to law with Fieldfisher. This is the plug. Regardless of the academic journey you follow, I'll give you a quick flavour. If university is not for you, and it's definitely not for everyone, we have a 6-year solicitor apprenticeship, which allows you to earn while you learn. Apprenticeships are practical vocational programs that combine academic study with practical work experience. And we currently have 29 apprentices across the 3 mainland offices. And you know an apprentice when you see them. They're the most highly motivated, enthusiastic, wonderful people that the firm has. Truly inspiring people. If you choose the university route, when you're at uni, we have a number of programs that you may be interested in applying for. The first is the First Steps program. That's for first-year students or those in their second year of a 4-year course. The 2-day program gives you an insight into a career at Fieldfisher and puts you in a strong position to apply for other early career programs in the future. We also have the Diversity Access Scheme. Now, this is very cool. It's a paid 2-week program aimed at students currently underrepresented in law, and it's not your traditional vacation scheme. It includes the opportunity to be seconded to a client to find out what it's like working at a top 50 city law firm, and you also get to work with Peloton's in-house legal team. I don't know if you're aware of Peloton, you know, they're clever bikes and treadmills and stuff. Anyway, you get to work with those cool people. Over 60% of our future trainee cohort are hired through this scheme. And if being a trainee is something of interest to you at Fieldfisher, and I think I can speak for other law firms as well, getting a foot in the door on one of these programs is definitely the way to go. And then you get a training contract. That's the traditional route that I went through. Actually, when I was younger, a while back, you didn't have any choice. That was the route you went through. And that's the start of the journey to becoming an exceptional lawyer and trusted business advisor. As a Fieldfisher future trainee, individuals will be joining a hardworking, friendly, and professional network, working with some of the most exciting cases and learning from the top legal minds in a diverse range of sectors. So if you want to find out more about what it's like working at Fieldfisher, definitely don't take my word for it. I mean, clearly I'm going to spin all the good stuff. Over lunch, there'll be people who work here who you can quiz and ask really difficult questions. I get the truth out of them. So do find them over lunchtime and hear from them directly. All that leaves me to do is to hand over probably back to you. Back to you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really special that we get an opportunity to host this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm tempted to apply for a position at Fieldfisher now myself, so thank you. Now, if I can introduce our next speaker, and this is Millie Hawes. Millie Hawes is the head of Just Purpose at Fieldfisher, and this is a program comprising of 3 pillars: pro bono, community, and sustainability. And working with civil society organization, Fieldfisher drives societal change and empowers their people to take action on a wide range of causes. Millie leads projects across the international Fieldfisher network and strives to embed ESG in the firm's purpose and strategy. Millie has a particular focus on disability rights. And Millie has also been absolutely instrumental in terms of putting this event together. So again, we are incredibly indebted to this panel here. And I will now hand over to Millie to speak to us about why it's important to inspire and empower girls' human rights defenders. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Sultana. So as Sultana said, she gave me a great introduction. My name's Millie and I lead our Just Purpose work. Now, a lot of people do think, what on earth is Just Purpose when they hear that phrase? It's very unique to Fieldfisher. It's a Fieldfisher brand, and it's something that I've been incredibly passionate about for the 5 years that I've worked at the firm. And as Sultana said, it's our societal and environmental impact work. So what I want to spend the next 10 minutes or so talking to you about is actually slightly alternative careers in the law, my journey at Fieldfisher, but also my journey before that, and how I very much used my own personal passions to drive my career. So I'm very much a self-proclaimed disability rights activist, and you'll be hearing a lot about activism today, and it's an incredibly powerful tool for change at small and big levels. Now, what I want to do is kind of give you an understanding of my journey and talk more specifically around the intersectionality of human rights. And obviously, I mentioned that I'm a disability rights activist, but I'm also a woman. And the intersection of being a disabled woman has really, it's been frustrating at times, I'll be honest. There's constantly things that we have to fight for, fighting for the right to education, the right to work, the right to housing. But instead of kind of getting bogged down in the frustrations of those fights, I've really used that as a driver for me, as a drive for unequivocal desire to prompt change across society. And I think what's really important I remember from a really young age is I could see all of these barriers that existed out there in the world. And I thought, this is ridiculous. We're in the 21st century and there's so much that we need to be doing. How do I go about doing that? And I'll be honest, I had no idea what I could be doing. Before university, I wasn't really sure what the right thing to do was. I was really quiet at school. I didn't feel confident speaking out. So I got on with it. And I knew that as a disabled woman, expectations were quite low of anyone with a disability. So I remember kind of quietly brewing on this feeling of low expectations and thinking, I really want to prove people wrong, but not in a kind of patronizing way, but in a way that actually just proves that disabled people have a very powerful voice. And because we've constantly had to fight to remove accessibility barriers, for example, we have a huge range of skill sets that many people envy, actually, is the kind of that drive and that resilience to make change happen. So at school, I was, very quiet. I got on with things. I got my GCSEs, I got my A-levels, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I ended up studying law at university, but I'm not a lawyer. And I really love the idea of more and more people studying law, but not actually pursuing a career as a lawyer. And you'll be hearing a lot about different people's career paths within the law, but it's important to remember that there are so many career paths within the legal sector. And as much as I adored my law degree, I knew that actually I wanted to focus very specifically on that societal and environmental impact side of things. But what actually prompted me to be interested in that? Now, at university, I remember vividly the aha moment, I call it, the light bulb moment I had when suddenly I felt like I had a sense of purpose for my career. And I remember distinctly sitting in the library. I was studying for my dissertation, which was on disability, no surprises there. And I remember learning a lot more about the theory of disability. And growing up, I'd always thought that disability was this very negative thing. It was really seen as this undesirable medical thing that no one really talked about. And the more I studied it, the more I realized actually this is entirely wrong. We need to be changing this mindset around disability rights and disability justice and looking at it much more from what we call the social model of disability. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of the social model of disability, but that completely shifts the narrative where it defines disability by the societal barriers that we've created. So that can be environmental barriers, it can be attitudinal barriers, it can be infrastructural barriers, all things that essentially are man-made that we have the power to identify and remove. And suddenly I felt really empowered because I saw actually society hasn't been built for disabled people, but we can change that. That's all man-made barriers. And I remember having this revelation, I suppose, at university and thinking, okay, what can I do for my career to actually change that? What can I do to remove some of those barriers? So I graduated from university and started work in a charity. And it was a very small charity that worked specifically with disabled young people. And I absolutely fell in love with it. It was an amazing opportunity where I got to work with hundreds of young people from the ages of about 14 up to about 25. And it was working on things like the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, which many of you will know about. It was about building employability schemes specifically for disabled people, because I realized that not everyone gets that light bulb moment that I had at university. I had an amazing family around me who really supported me and helped me to understand that disability is not this negative bad thing, but many people didn't have those privileges. So I was able to work with the young people to enable a lot of these employability and learning programs to come to life. But I knew that working in the charity sector, I was surrounded by like-minded people. And I wanted a bit more of a challenge. I wanted to actually create change on a bigger scale. As important as it was to do it on that individual scale, I really wanted to do something a bit bigger. So I started looking elsewhere, and I knew that I really enjoyed my law degree. So I wanted to use my legal skills in some way, but I didn't want that to be necessarily as a lawyer. Lo and behold, stumbled across Fieldfisher, and they were looking for someone to join their corporate responsibility team. And I remember looking through at all of the opportunities they offered, and their pro bono work specifically, which you'll be hearing about a bit later from Katrina, was around disability rights. They have a huge number of programs that was specifically designed around supporting the needs of disabled people through pro bono work. And at university, I'd done a lot of pro bono work. I'd worked with a charity called IPSI, which supported children with special educational needs and disabilities to get education, health and care plans lined up for their education to have their needs met. And I loved that. That was a great opportunity to work directly with families to ensure that they had their education needs met. And I thought, okay, there's a lot of alignment here with some of my values and my desire to create change, but within a bigger corporate setting. 5 years later, still here. So I now head up that Just Purpose team, and it's been great to see the evolution of everything over those last 5 years. I think it'd be fair to say that 5 years ago, the legal sector wasn't brilliant when it came to disability inclusion. And that's been a big part of my role at the firm, has been actually developing our disability inclusion strategy. So alongside the Just Purpose work that I do, I also founded our disability network called Discover. And Discover has been running for about nearly 4 years now. And it's a network that has 4 kind of core aims. So number one, it's to educate. So we all know that one of the biggest barriers to creating a truly just and equitable society is misinformation, it's a lack of education, it's ignorance and misunderstanding of a lot of experiences of people across society. So I've been doing a huge amount of work to educate people on what disability truly means. It's also about peer support. So we know that across the working population, about 21% of people are disabled. So it's a really, really big group, a big number of us, and obviously half of that will be disabled women. So it's really important that we have that peer support network where actually we can share shared frustrations, but also come together to promote genuine change. So we've been doing a lot of policy work recently to really understand what are the barriers within the profession and how can we remove those barriers to get more disabled talent through the doors. So a big part of that is around outreach as well. We've done a lot of work with a number of disability organisations who've come in and supported us to audit our offices, for example, to check accessibility, to look through all of our HR policies and our IT systems, again, to make sure that they're accessible for everyone. And crucially, it's about removing those barriers. So that's something that I will always talk about, is how can we, as a profession, as a sector, remove barriers to really make sure that we are an inclusive environment, but also empower people to feel that they can speak up. I know that I've never felt as strong as I have when I've been able to speak up and challenge things. And that's one thing I really implore all of you in this room to do, is actually, if you see something that isn't right, you do challenge it, and you constantly ask questions and you find out more and you continue to challenge it. And I know that advocacy is not easy. It's something that you hone over an entire lifetime. I don't think anyone can confidently say that they've got advocacy absolutely nailed. It will always evolve, and self-advocacy is actually probably one of the hardest parts. Advocating for yourself is really incredibly difficult. And I know that as a disabled woman, I've had to advocate for myself a lot when it comes to accessing things that non-disabled people get very easily. And because I've been able to develop that skill set for myself, I've been able to broaden it out to more community advocacy. But actually, I'm still much more comfortable with community advocacy than I am with self-advocacy. That's not going to change anytime soon. I think that's just human nature. But if you're able to practice this with just general life things, it makes a big difference. And one thing I will say is, don't feel like you've got to change the world overnight. One of the proudest moments I had was actually at university when it was at a time when there was a lot of sexual violence at the university, and a lot of women were being assaulted late at night when they were coming home from bars, clubs, or late nights at the library. So the university had put on a minibus that was free of charge that you could get to get you home safely at night. But that minibus wasn't accessible for wheelchair users. So I thought, why is my safety not being prioritized here? I'm a woman, I'm just at risk. Or perhaps if you look at the statistics, more at risk as a disabled woman of also being assaulted here. So why are we not including wheelchair users in our offer of getting people home safely? So I spent a number of weeks working with Students' Union and with the university to understand why they hadn't thought about this from the beginning and what they could do to change it. And it's still one of my proudest moments that they did then buy an accessible minibus to make sure that actually everyone could get home safely. But that was a very small thing. It wasn't going to hit the media headlines. It wasn't going to change the world, but it was a small thing that made disabled women at the university feel that much safer. And I didn't have to have any legal knowledge to do that. I just had to advocate for the community as a whole. So I'd really encourage you, if you feel confident, to speak up when you can, and have a think about what those little drivers are that you want to pursue as a career. It may be law, and you'll obviously be hearing more from our lawyers later on today about what that career looks like. But it might be also something like what I do, which is in the ESG space. So corporate responsibility, environmental and societal activism. That's something that I get to do within the corporate sector. And it's been one of the most rewarding parts of my life so far. And I felt very supported by Fieldfisher throughout that. So thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Millie, for those words of inspiration. And it was absolutely fascinating to hear about your journey in the law. So thank you. Millie will be here. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to ask. Now, next we have Justina. And again, much like the people on this panel, Justina has been critical and instrumental in terms of getting this event up and running. And Justina is the Senior Manager of Inclusiveness, Equity and Diversity at Fieldfisher. She has over a decade of experience within this sector and recently joined Fieldfisher, but wears a number of hats. So she's a regular speaker on the topic of EDI or DIE or EID, lots of different variations. And she likes to talk on the topics of empowering individuals, and also she likes to connect people with internal, external stakeholders at all levels to build strong and influential relationships. She will tell us a little bit about her book that she has planned. I won't take that away from her. And she is an incredible person that I've gotten to know over the last couple of months, and she has been incredibly supportive in terms of the festival in its entirety and in terms of organizing everything to do with this particular event. So we are incredibly lucky. I didn't want to go too much into her career because she has had an incredible career, and I want her to tell us through her own words. And so, Justina, if I can welcome you to the program.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and good morning. I want to give everyone a bit of a plug. We are on a bit of a social frenzy as well. So if you could, at Girls Human Rights Hub, and the hashtag for today is 1 in a million. So if I could ask you to bring out your phones and whatever your social media platform of interest is, Girls Human Rights Hub, and Fieldfisher, hashtag 1 in a million. And I'm going to do some selfies. Okay, I'm going to trust, not that we're playing into stereotypes, but you have the ability to multitask. So as I am talking, you're going to be able to do your little hashtag or do it later, but please do. You know, Girls Human Rights Hub and the work Sultana's doing, it only happens by the more people that know about it and able to support such a great initiative. And so it really helps. You know, this event is free. We want to open it up to as many people as possible. But what we do ask is for your support in sharing the good news, sharing what's happening today. And really, we can get more people on board, and that what we do next year will be even bigger and better. As you can see, standing room only. And we're really delighted to have you with us this morning. So I'm a bit of a chatterbox. I'm going to watch the time. I am very new to Fieldfisher. I joined 4 months ago, and literally as I arrived, we were talking about Girls Human Rights Hub, and Millie and I both thought this is something that the firm should support and back, and it was great to have a male partner backing and championing it. But I'm not here today really to fly the flag for Fieldfisher, because actually I hope what you see and you hear from people today will talk and you will feel Fieldfisher and what it means to be someone at Fieldfisher. But what I would like to talk to you today is, this is a young lawyer symposium, but life happens, and life happens to all of us. And irrespective of what life throws at us, I want us to have the resilience and the ability to still continue on our causes and our purposes, irrespective of what comes our way. And you might be asking, why am I sharing that? Well, I had a dream to be a lawyer one day. And I am, for a bit of context in terms of my background, I'm a South London girl, I'm from Croydon, and I'm from a single parent household, but my mother was really, really keen and instilled in the importance of an education. And the reason being is, we're from a Nigerian heritage background, and it's seen as the passport to opportunity. Get a good education, and that will equip you for what you need in life. Well, that's a good foundation, but actually we're very fortunate that today you can have an education, but also you can go through different paths than the traditional ones, as Rob alluded to this morning, and still find yourself on a similar trajectory, which is great. But I think it's important that we reflect on the privilege afforded to us here today, that we are able to have access to an education where there are people in many parts of the world who are fighting for that freedom. So with that, I understood my mum's mantra around the importance of an education and the privilege I had to have an education. When I was 17, secondary school was a bit troubling for me. My mum and I didn't see eye to eye, and we decided, you know, I will go to boarding school in Nigeria. Well, I didn't decide, she decided. And that was to instill into me one of two things. She wanted me to know about the culture where I'm from, but also she felt that I was taking for granted the value of the education. And I'm proud to say that when I did leave Nigeria, I left with a full understanding of the privileges that I have. And you will hear the word privilege from me often, because we all have some of it in one shape or form. And I think it's important we think about what we are blessed with, what we have, and how we can use that to help others. And so when I was 17, my mother returned to the UK. She was living abroad. And she had a stroke. She collapsed at the age of 37. And she never returned to the mother I once knew. And that was a life-changing moment for me. I had a mother who was very vocal, was very keen to ensure that her daughter knew about her rights and what was important. But there were several things from that point forward that I realized that I needed to take myself. You know, we talk about people having baggage, but as we walk through life, things happen, and that gives us a bag of what we're carrying and that life that we're dealing with. So I share this because from the age of 17, I've navigated life having to fight for the rights of, in a very different vein to Millie, but it's so interesting when you meet people and your paths cross, but they're very similar. So I went from being my mother's daughter, I have a younger brother, to being someone who is constantly advocating for my mother's rights, for the right for her life support machine to stay on, for the right to have access to healthcare, for the right for her to have accessible transport, for the right for her to be able to get on a plane. It goes on and on and on. Now, I took this on, and it's not something I say with a badge of honor, but it's something I want to share with you, that there are people in all areas of our lives that are walking and navigating life that do require our advocacy, do require our leadership, do require that litigation. And so the skills that you equip yourself with, whether you become a lawyer or not, will shape who you are in the future. And so I'm really delighted that despite my challenge, my mum now, we live at home together. And I fortunately, was able to complete my education. And I worked in law firms. I decided law wasn't for me, but I love lawyers, but I didn't want to be one. So I just surround myself working with them. So I had a career in business development and marketing. I've worked in a number of law firms across the city. And then I went to a firm, and I will call them out because they have significantly shaped my career. I walked through the door and I had the opportunity 7 years ago to get a job at the prestigious Slaughter and May, which is a leading law firm. And everyone told me that I shouldn't take the job because I won't fit in. I won't fit in, and people like me don't belong there. Well, I'm someone who stands against the odds, and I took that opportunity and was prepared to not fit in. And I'm so glad I did, because the imposter that I walked in, when I walked out a much better person. Slaughters went on their journey and I went on mine. And together, collectively, we were able to make significant progress in regards to diversity and inclusion. And it was there where I started my journey. I recognize that law should be accessible to all, but it's not just about words that we say, it's about how we communicate that. It's ensuring that people from, irrespective of their social class, have an opportunity to enter into the profession at the highest echelons and succeed. But not only succeed, but when they get there, that they are able to attain the highest level of partnership if they so wish. Now, many a times we always talk about diversity, equality, but actually it requires men to support us. And I'm so glad that Fieldfisher, the two main sponsors of today's event are two men. And I think that's a real powerful point, because it goes beyond, we can't change on our own. We need to bring everyone into that conversation. And it's really important that we don't feel that we are doing this alone, but we're doing it together. So can I just give all the men in this room a round of applause for joining us this morning? So I am watching the clock and I have plenty of things to say. But I just want to leave you with one final thing, and it's a poem. Fairness, equity, and justice for all. These are the values that we must recall when we think about a society that's just, where everyone has the chance to trust. Disruptive justice is the key to creating a world where we can all be free. Free to learn, to grow, to thrive. Free to pursue our dreams and to survive. Access to resources is essential for all to reach their full potential. Education, healthcare, and employment too. These are the things that we all pursue. But when equalities abound, these resources are not equally found. Some are left behind, excluded, and denied. Their dreams and hopes are pushed aside. So let us work to make things right, to end the struggle, to end the fight. Let us strive to create a fairer world where justice and equity are unfurled. For when we work towards disruptive justice, we build a society where we can trust, a society that is just and equitable, a society that is truly formidable. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Justina. It's incredibly generous of you to share the story of your personal journey and your professional journey.
I didn't give my book a plug.
Give your book a plug.
I didn't give my book a plug. My mother and I have kindly documented her experiences of what it's like for our roles to reverse in terms of her becoming, me being her carer. And we share that in a book called Unplanned Paths, A Stroke of Life. So please, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I don't really do Instagram, but actually on Instagram, we're Unplanned Paths the book. Please follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justina. It's truly inspiring to hear from both of you, Millie and Justina. And I think the lesson we can take away is that ultimately, whatever challenges we face, it actually ends up making us better fighters. And so don't be afraid of challenges, embrace them, and you can turn that into your superpower. So thank you both so much for joining us for those and giving us those inspirational words. That's the end of our first panel. We will quickly do a change and we have our second panel who'll come on. Now, if you feel free to discuss it amongst yourselves or to put some messages out on social media. I did mention before that we had some giveaways planned. Now, I will give you more details about that later, but these include work experience opportunities, mini pupilages, mentoring, coaching, and lunch at one of the Inns of Courts with Queen's Counsel, or I should say King's Counsel. So I will give you more details about that later on, but if you're posting, we'd be incredibly grateful if you say nice things about the event, and we will have people who are looking at those, trawling through those, and the best post will get some of these prizes. All right, so more about that later. We will, please feel free to chat amongst yourselves for a few minutes whilst we get our next panel together. Thank you.